He who seeks, let him not cease until he finds. And when he finds, he will be dismayed. And when he is dismayed, he will be astonished. And when he is astonished, then he will have rest. Amen. And yet there has never been such a war as the present. Wars are not decreasing, they are increasing, and war cannot be stopped by ordinary means. All these theories about universal peace, about peace conferences and so on, are again simply laziness and hypocrisy. Men do not think about themselves. They do not work on themselves, but think only of how to make other people do what they want. Welcome once again, wherever you may be. I have some very interesting material today on the subject of colour, of manifestations in the cosmos, and a passage from Gurdjieff where he speaks plainly about the automatic life and the life that is alive. One night this week I had a dream and Gurdjieff spoke to me. Actual technical material, and I'll read it out later on. Let's begin with Mr. G. If we take the example of a two-brained creature, the donkey, apart from the possibilities given to you of consciously coating this higher sacred part in your presence, that donkey has the same value for the common cosmic process and consequently for our common creator as yourself. Since each of you is predestined for some definite purpose, and all these different purposes taken together constitute the meaning of everything existing. The only difference between you and your donkey lies in the form and quality of functioning of the internal and external organization of your common presence. For instance, you have only 2 legs, whereas your donkey has 4, any one of which is immeasurably stronger than yours. Can you on those 2 weak legs of yours carry as much as that donkey can? Certainly not, because your legs were given you only for carrying yourself, and the little that is necessary for the normal existence of a 3-brained being, as foreseen by nature. This unequal distribution of power and strength, which at first sight may appear unjust on the part of our most just Creator, was made by great nature solely because the surplus of cosmic substances granted you by the foresight of the Creator and by nature for the purpose of personal self-perfecting is not given to your donkey, but instead of this, great nature herself transforms the surplus of cosmic substances in the donkey's presence, without of course the donkey being aware of it, into the power and strength of certain of its organs for its present existence alone, thus enabling it to manifest that power incomparably better than you. And these manifestations of the different powers of beings of different forms constitute in their totality the exterior conditions that alone make it possible for 3-brained beings like yourself consciously to perfect the germ of reason placed in their presence to the required gradation of pure objective reason. I repeat, all beings large and small, of all brain systems without exception existing on the earth, within the earth, in the air, or beneath the waters, all are equally necessary to our common Creator for the common harmony of the universal existence. And since all these forms of beings taken as a whole constitute the form of the process of universal existence required by our Creator, the essence of each being is equally dear and equally valuable to Him. For our common Creator, all beings are only particles of the existence of one whole essence, spiritualized by Himself. Beautiful and incomparable instruction from Mr. Gurdjieff. Truly, we must be grateful. Without him, where would we be? In this world of total chaos, this world of mirages and subversion, to hear the truth even once can make tears flow down onto the ground. But today, many men do live as automatically as that two-brained animal, as that donkey. And materials are processed in them, and they are very, very active, but it is not them. It is a manifestation of the cosmos flowing through them that they just barely see. They just barely say, yeah, this is me, but it's not really them. They are not what they were meant to be. As Gurdjieff says, our bodies indicate to us that our real life is not material. And what we call the psyche, our psychological life, is a new world, a life born within the life. Now, I wanted to criticize various manifestations of modern spirituality, and I promise that in each case I will provide a correct vision of things. The first thing is I read a passage from the Quran a few weeks ago. In it, it is said that this life is just a kind of sport. We challenge each other in deeds, but it doesn't mean much because the real life is in the future, in the divine. Is that true? Is that technically accurate? Of course not. God sees everything. And according to our spirit, here will be born something there, because life is real. But that passage is typical of so much spiritual literature, denying the reality of this world. It comes because human beings are unable to correctly locate themselves, to feel themselves. They are here, but they are not here. They are uncomfortably caught between. How can I become? How can I become? How can I be me? Of course, when it comes to Islam, there is more of an emotional current behind the whole thing that I do not dispute. If I talk about the fourth way, I heard a lecture this week about Gurdjieff. Does it come from Hyperborea? Does it come from Atlantis? Does it come from Egypt? Does it come from Mesopotamia? It just went on and on and on, drowning with words. I would say that half of the Gurdjieff material out there is like that. It is drowning you in words. And the other half of the material out there in the world is simply, we just observe in the red or blue. And only somebody who has integrated himself and done that being particle duty has the reconciling current going through. There is no knowing unless there is being, and there is no being unless you have deserved it. I am waking up to the lack of technical information that exists in human culture. Gurdjieff says that the beings of the planet Earth do not even have a reasonably accurate representation of the path. I happened to stumble upon this Enneagram this week. I've borrowed it, sorry, excuse me. This Enneagram represents closing a sale. You know, the kind of thing Americans think about. And you tell me what you think about it. A few months ago, I cut through J.G. Bennett's Enneagrams. Here it's the same thing. The point of action where things happen is when the sale is closed. That's when you and the customer meet and the sale happens like a conception. That is the dough. But the author of this Enneagram has put this moment on the second vertex, which means that he doesn't understand the feelings or the meaning of this Enneagram. The Enneagram is not a simple thing to understand. It is very subtle. And you can see here 7 and 8, he's just filled in with some garbage and mixed together scales. The real question is, what does this Enneagram represent? If you're a salesman for Bentley and you have a daily cycle when you walk into the office in the morning and you clean up and wash the glass and you open things up, put the music on, you see a few customers, you have lunch, you see a few more customers, and then you close up the shop. That is like the Enneagram of your daily cycle, which can be represented, okay? But closing a sale is something different. It's like an energetic flow between you and the customer, the beginning, the middle, and the conception. In this one, he's mixed things together. Things of different scale. If I look at this book, another representative of modern spirituality, apparently it was written in 1908. At that time, as the Western world was celebrating the demise of Christianity, they all came up with their own stupid book. And if you look at the picture at the front here, what do you notice about it? Yes, it's symmetrical. I'll read out a paragraph from this fraudulent book, the Kybalion. It says, "Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites, like and unlike are the same, and the opposites are identical in nature, but different in degrees, and extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths, all paradoxes may be reconciled." This is pure Marxist bullshit. The point of evolution, the point of human life is growth. And growth happens by the reconciliation between sides. Not mentioned here. This guy is a mechanical man. He is a do-re man. And when you do not reconcile, when the living current is not in you, then you will say that all truths are half-truths and all paradoxes may be reconciled and nothing means nothing and everything means everything, because you are, in fact, not living, because the living current does not travel through you. But as Gurdjieff says, all knowledge is material and it does dissipate, and this world has dissipated and burnt off countless knowledge. And these scriptures and these texts and these books have lost their potency, have lost their reconciling current, and when the lava cools, all you have is the left side and the right side and nothing in the middle. There is no love left, unless those arrive who will love once again. I read this interesting thing from Rodney Collin. He liked to talk about technical things. He says, "In all these systems, the nature of the three forces was universal. That is, they were regarded as entering into everything, everywhere, and on every scale, from the world of maggots to the world of stars, and from the effect of the light to that of thought or aspirations. No such general ideas of the three forces exists in modern philosophy. though specific instances are recognized, as for example in the proton, neutron, and electron of atomic physics, or in the reactant, reagent, and catalyst of many chemical processes. If we consider the three forces from the point of view of physics, we have to say that active force is of the shortest wavelength, the fastest vibration. Passive force is of the longest wavelength, the slowest vibration, and mediating force of an intermediate wavelength and vibration. For example, the octave of color stretches from blue, wavelength about 4,000 angstrom units, to red, about 8,000 angstrom units. But as we know, the possibilities of red and blue are very limited, and the whole infinite wealth of color that we see depends on the presence of an intermediate color, yellow, quite different from and midway between the others, at about 5,750 angstrom units. This is the basis of the three-colored process in printing. As far as the phenomena of color are concerned, we may call blue active force, red passive force, and yellow mediating force all possible colors derived from the combination of these three. Thank you, Mr. Collin. This man is an English journalist. It means he works in the newspapers. But he talks about angstrom units, neutrons and protons. They love to do that, don't they? Well, I produce a lot of materials myself, and this information is not correct. I'm sure many of you will know that color printing is done these days, CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. The black is only there to deepen the dark colors. If it weren't for that limitation, there would only be three colors there, CMY. But on the screen of your laptop and in the retina of your eye, the three are RGB, red and blue, and it is green that is the sword between them. I believe that Mr. Orage, also an author, made this mistake with the yellow, and that Rodney Collin is simply imitating him. When we print, we have white paper, and if you printed all those colors together on top of it, they go black. So we print from white to black. In fact, white is whole, and you are subtracting parts of the white to make the colors inside. Orange, blue, purple. These are formed by the subtraction of the white light of the paper. And if you add all the colors together, you go all the way down to black. It is subtracting from the white, you see. But that is not how life works, is it? When you look out into the sky, into the world, and you see the heavens, the stars, you see the boats, you see the seagulls. This is not subtractive, this is additive. This is additive, because the backdrop of our world is the dark sky, and life adds color to it with its spirit. Recently, it seems that a certain Swiss company has noticed this and has actually created a kind of printing where you print onto black paper and you imitate life by adding red, green and blue to it, just like life does. And I have some images here you can look at, quite interesting. And they use a special ink that is pearlescent and vibrant. And if you add those three colors, red, green and blue together, you get white, just like life. I'll just read from this Swiss company, from Lorenz Boegli. He says, "Until now, it has not been possible to bring the multifaceted and luminous RGB color space onto paper or other substrates in a single printing process. As an additive color system, RGB is reserved for luminous media such as screens or beams. RGB are light colours, and colour perception is created by mixing light. This is why it is also called an additive colour model. The more colour is used, the brighter the picture becomes. If you use all three basic colours, you get white. CMYK, in contrast, is the subtractive model. It is composed of the three colours cyan, magenta and yellow, as well as the key colour black, which are printed on a usually white background. The more colour is applied, the darker the result will be. Our RGB prints, however, are printed onto black paper and blend into brilliant white. This is possible thanks to reflective pigments in the colours themselves, which we call Spectraval. Well, I think this is extremely helpful to understand some of Gurdjieff's subtle terminology. Considering things carefully, it's clear to me that on the right-hand side you have the colours yellow, orange, red that form one group, and on the other side you have violet, blue and cyan that form a second group, maybe slightly wider than the first. But in the middle you have green, and it comes out of nowhere. To understand what is happening in the manifested world is very high knowledge, but it is a very difficult thing to know. Have you ever noticed, by the way, that if people don't like what you're doing, they start slamming doors? I was walking down the road today, and there were birds wheeling in the sky as normal and tweeting from the trees, and the trees and the shrubs, they form this three-dimensional matrix manifested in the physical spatial world. And it's a matrix full of different kinds of creatures at different scales of intelligence. But if a person talks about the world or about life, what are they really speaking about? They're talking about their inner psychic state. That's where people live. They have an inner world, and it's full of colours and feelings. That's what they are, that's where they live, that's where they experience phenomena, and that is their role. And in the same way that there is an outer manifested plane, there is a shared psychic plane, and the culture, the media, so on, those are words to describe the sharing of material inside this psychic world. And in the same way as there are structures in the physical world, there are also structures inside this shared psychic world, this life that we all share. For instance, after World War II, there were some black holes that were created inside this psychic world, and they operate very strongly on human beings today. They have become like the axles that this inner psychic world revolves around. People talk about the narrative or memes. These are structures in the inner psychic world. If I go to that dream that I had two unusual dreams, one after the other. In the first one, I walked into a Korean restaurant, a small one, on a hot summer's night. There were 3 people in there, one man sitting silently at a table on the left, and there were 2 in front of me. One standing up behind the other, reading a small book. And the man in front was kneeling down and holding a kind of prayer posture. I didn't really understand what was happening, and I walked up to those 2 and stood there for a moment, but everybody was completely still. After a while I simply sat down at a table and waited to be served, but, well, the dream went on. I'm not going to go into that, but in the next part I heard Gurdjieff's voice in my head speaking, and he said to me, The problem with subconsciousness is that it only fetters and has potentials, and so it connects with others continuously. To require the contact with other men is like requiring dollars to Damascus. Every time it makes contacts with others, it becomes distorted. Well, I was told by a reliable source that it wasn't really Gurdjieff and it was just something that I was thinking of, and I was representing it to myself like that. And as I had been working in the week, I could see that my consciousness was jumping straight into the material world as soon as it had some freedom. I could be attracted by something or angry at something else. Any kind of free energy would just jump into the material world, into the earth, and attach itself to that, which is what is called identification. It's not a very good word, but anyway, people know what that means. The whole world is rotten. Greed, hatred, and cruelty are in the saddle. But we intend to organize a new empire, a new civilization. And this world must die so that a new and better world may come forth, reincarnated on a higher plane. Take care.